All right. Ooh, oh, wait a second there. Let's put myself on screen. All right. Welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg in my pink shirt. After a morning on Capitol Hill, and did what I guess I like best, or, when I go down there to lobbies, I actually did go into a number of offices of various senators pushing some bills that Bernie Sanders has introduced, and they're good bills. They would stop Israel from getting weapons that it's using to kill Gazans, part of its genocide. So, way to go, Bernie. And today's theme, the theme of today's program really was inspired by Bernie. I ran into the senior senator from Vermont just after I parked. I found an amazing spot. I mean, it was like one car away from the Senate. I couldn't believe it. I was going down this street that ends at one of the Senate office buildings, the Hart building, if you know it. This was a side street that ends, I think it's 2nd Northeast. Would be Northeast? Yeah, Northeast, 2nd Northeast, and it ends right at the Hart building. And those are prime parking spaces on the street. Very hard to find ever one available. And there's no charge. And you can just park there. You don't even have to be a resident, nothing. You get 2 hours of free parking. Usually they don't check, more than every 3-4 hours. So really you get more than 2 hours. So I couldn't believe it. I thought I was going to have to drive around the hill for a while to find a spot as I was coming up on Hart. And then this car just pulled out just as I was approaching this primo spot. Plus it was about 98 degrees, 99. So I parked the car, and that wasn't the end of my good luck, because after I parked and I just looked to make sure I was fully within the legal zone, which I was, didn't get a ticket or anything like that, came back for 2.5 hours. I told you 2 hours, came back 2.5 hours later, no ticket, nothing. But as I was just confirming, my car was completely legally parked. There was no street cleaning today. There was no special event or something that, indicating I couldn't park there. So I did all that. And just as I was getting ready to walk to the group I was going to canvass with, guess who I saw walking towards me from, I guess, his house on the Hill? And that would be Bernie Sanders, senior senator from Vermont. So I saw Bernie. And I said, "Hey, Senator, how you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, how you doing?" I don't know if he recognized me at all. He may have, because, I'm sure he doesn't, but I've seen him before. He wouldn't know who I was. So anyway, it was very grumpy. Oh. So I said to him, "You got to do something about Gaza." And he says, "Well, wait till you see what I'm doing today," which was true. He's got these bills. And I said, "Well, this is just terrible what's happening." And then I was kind of irritated with his grumpy tone and this sort of arrogance that he certainly showed me. And I lashed out a little bit. And I said, "You got to do more." So he says to me, "Well, you do more." So I said, "Well, I'm doing everything I can, but I'm not a senator. I don't have the power. You have power. I don't have power." So I don't know, they sort of waves me off like I'm nothing to him, like I'm a fly. And then I continued, I said, "You never should have supported Kamala. You never should have supported Hillary." So he responded, "Oh, Trump would be better." So I said, "That's not the choice. It's not either, I said, you could have led people to a different place. You could have run against Trump and Hillary. You could have been the alternative to terrible options." But, he just kept walking. He was kind of cursing me out. He didn't like it. He didn't like hearing from me, I could tell. And I guess that inspired me. But I felt a little bad afterwards, a little egg on my face. Again, Bernie doesn't know me but when I met with my group and I explained to them what happened, they were all like, "Yeah, Bernie's such a pain. Bernie this," nobody was sympathetic to Bernie. Nobody criticized the way I handled it. But it turns out that what we were doing today on the Hill was pushing senators, just Democratic ones, to support 2 bills that Bernie's introducing, or he introduced yesterday, and there's apparently going to be an emergency vote on them because the Senate's going in recess after this week, to stop shipping weapons to Israel. So certain weapons, to hold certain weapons, not all, but some, stop certain sales. So that's good, right? I mean, that is a good thing. I'm not saying it isn't. And I felt like maybe that was a little bit unfair for me to say to Bernie, you're not doing enough, when he actually, in this case, is doing something. And I thought a lot about it. I was like, well, so the theme was, the question I put on the thumbnail for you is, Bernie doing enough? And I'd love to hear what you think. 240-242-5646. I showed on that thumbnail. I even show, the news release. I think that's from his office. It actually is, but it's also accurate, right? I mean, it's not like he's tooting his horn a little bit, but you should do that. You're promoting positive, good legislation. And, he does toot his horn there. He says news from yesterday. It's yesterday's date, but today's the bill. Sanders to force votes to block arms sales to Israel amid starvation in Gaza. That's accurate. And, so I asked the question, well, is that, you think it is? Is that enough? And, but I put on there the headline, 12 civilians killed, and well over 100, by the way, another day, another over 100 Gazans murdered by Israel. But I used the headline there because this is the humanitarian crisis that we're all dealing with right now, where the Gazans are literally starving to death every day, and it gets worse and worse. 12 civilians killed as Israel army opens fire on aid seekers. So people desperate for food brave bullets. That's where we are right now. And the question I asked, is Bernie doing enough? Well, in this moment, he is doing something. He's doing more than just about everyone else. But the question ultimately we're going to try to answer is, within the context of Bernie's actions, is that sufficient? Or does he have to think outside the box? Does he have to go and, not accept the current matrix, the current dynamic, which is two parties? And that's what he, because he said, would you prefer Trump? Would Trump be better? Right. So that's why he's not doing enough. And we'll go through this today. And that's why he's not doing enough, because he refuses to consider, I don't know what, I don't know what is in his mind, but he will not challenge the two-party system. He will not challenge the duopoly. And that failure is why we are where we are right now. That failure, not just by Bernie, but by, and the sub question we ask, why can't progressive Democrats ever satisfy the left? And I guess I'm a leftist, right? I'm the left. Why can't that? In some ways, I'm not a leftist, but at least when it comes to the military and other ways, I in a lot of ways, I'm kind of an FDR Dem. I don't know if that makes me a leftist. They can't satisfy the left as long as they view themselves ultimately as Democrats. And so I'm answering my question at the beginning of the program, but that's what we're going to talk about this whole show. I'd love to hear from you at any point. 240-242-5646, 240-242-5646. Don't forget, I thought we had a good show yesterday. Got a lot of commentary with Arlen. I thought that went well. Let's see. Don't forget, subscribe now. Right there on bottom right of your screen, there's a blue and white square. Just click that. You can subscribe. Also ask you to join us on Halitics, which has a good why am I seeing my bell and let me get rid of the subscribe. Yeah. Want more? Definitely join us on Halitics. Join Halitics on Facebook, I should say. And also click the like. Really would love to see you join us in any way. Any kind of commentary, any kind of interaction with our videos is helpful. So definitely click like as well and comment. So those are all the ways you can help our program. Don't ask for anything. We don't ask for anything. I mentioned that another day, another 100 plus Gazans murdered by Israel. And tragically, of course, there's no break from the Israeli assault, the Israeli genocide. It's it's heartbreaking. It's hurting. It's horrific. It's so, I mean, there's just no way to look at it. The language doesn't suffice. From Anadolu Ajansi, 60,100. And this is official, right? I mean, when you see the images of Gaza. I don't show the starving children. I can't. It's just too painful for me. Maybe I need to get over that, but I don't think it helps. When people just see that and they just recoil and they're just horrified. But the anger that we should feel at Israel, we have to figure out how to transfer that into some kind of positive energy, positive action, not just wringing our hands, not just lamenting what Israel's doing. Certainly visiting senators, telling them you got to support Sanders' bill is something, right? I mean, I'm not diminishing that. I'm not saying it's nothing, but in the end, this Congress, this president is not going to take on Israel. This Congress is not going to address inequality. This president is not going to make life better for all the victims of the elites, the billionaire class. So we have to figure out some other solution. I think the only answer, and this is, because, as I said, progressive Dems can't satisfy us. They're not going to provide what the people need for decent life. In the end, that is just simply it. They're not going to provide. The elites will not provide what we need as human beings to enjoy a decent quality of life. That's just not going to happen. So that's why we need to go in a different direction, and that's why they cannot satisfy us. Since October 7th, 23, Israel and the U.S. have killed a minimum of 60,138 Gazans. This represents an additional 104 deaths since yesterday. And from March 18 to today, Trump and Netanyahu have killed at least 8,970 Gazans, and that is a number that includes within it almost certainly over 4,000 women and children. I highlight Trump, not Netanyahu, because Trump's my president. Netanyahu isn't. He wields tremendous power in our country, but he's not my president. We didn't elect him. We elected Trump. Trump has an absolute moral duty to do what he can to stop this, and he's doing just the opposite. All right, again, 240-242-5646 if you want to join me. I want to respond to an argument. I see this argument. To me, it is utterly ludicrous. It's absurd. It doesn't, and the show is not going to focus solely on Gaza whatsoever. We'll talk about it, but it's really going to be more about political change. How do we bring about change given what we're facing right now with two genocidal parties? How do we bring about change? Can it be done? What needs to be done? And one of the arguments you hear from the Zionists, I guess, for want of a better term, the pro-Israel supremacists, one of the arguments that you sometimes hear, and maybe a lot you hear from them, is that, Israel's only defending itself. Hamas is genocidal. Hamas wants to kill all the Jews. Just look at their charter. That's what you hear all the time. Just look at their charter. They want to kill all the Jews, so we've got to do it to them before they do it to us. That's their basic argument. Now, I feel like that argument, of course, is immoral in so many different ways. Israel isn't just killing Hamas militants, although it would be wrong if they did, but that's not all who they're killing. They're killing civilians. They're killing, we talked about this, women and children. They're starving people. So regardless of what the Hamas charter says, it doesn't justify what Israel is doing in any possible way. And again, Hamas is the representative of an oppressed, persecuted group, not the other way around. I went through the Hamas charter a little bit today. I was, there's obviously translation. I don't know what it says in Arabic. That would be obviously the go-to place. That's where we should be really looking. But there were some links, I guess, from, this is, by the way, from what I put up there, from Wikipedia, but there were some other links. And there are apparently two versions. There was a 1988 original charter. And I looked through that charter and I used the term in the search engine Jews or Jew. And it's found a lot. And they absolutely say, according to this translation, that the Muslim is engaged in a holy war against the Jew. That's said. And that the Muslim must fight the Jew. That is said. And there's at least one passage that's translated as either fight or kill the Jews or the Jew. At no point, however, in that 88 version, the original version, is there a call to genocide. At no time is there a call to kill Jews just because they're Jews. The point that is made, and some will say, well, you're being too nuanced and this and that, it's too fine a distinction. But the general tenor of the piece of the charter is that the Jews are in charge, are in control of, have taken Palestine. And the Jews, so the Hamas charter does exactly what Israel does. It equates Israel with Jews. And you know that's what Israel does because Israel calls itself the Jewish state. So Hamas accepts that framing. And they talk about a war, a holy war between the Muslim and the Jew. And that does seem to many, including myself, too far. It's a bridge too far. I don't want Muslims waging a holy war against me. I am culturally Jewish. I am Jewish by birth. I view myself at this point as a strong ally of the victims of Israeli oppression, of Israeli ethnic cleansing, of Israeli genocide. The great majority of those victims are, not exclusively, but the great majority of them are Muslim. So I view myself as an ally of the Muslims in their fight against, and to the extent that they're, and it's a very significant extent, being persecuted by Israel and by the United States as well. Tortured, right? Abu Ghraib, the people that we tortured were almost all Muslims, if not all Muslims. I don't know. Maybe there were some who weren't, but I think almost all were. So, yes, I see myself as an ally of the Muslims, even though I'm Jewish. I don't want to see a war between Muslim and Jew. I disagree with that framing by the drafters of the original Hamas charter. That said, I get why they wrote it that way. That said, I understand their rationale. That said, I don't view that charter as in any way justifying, sanctioning, authorizing, excusing Israel from killing Muslims. Period. End of story. And I note further that the Hamas charter actually, when amended in 2017, was changed to reflect that Hamas is struggling with Zionists, with the supporters of the Israeli state, of Israel. And I don't see how that's in any way even controversial. Is it not accurate? How could anyone look at what's happening in the Middle East, and specifically Israel, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and not conclude, yes, Israel is making absolute war on Muslim people? They are. If you're pro-Israel, if you're pro-Zionist, you are supporting the oppression, the persecution, the ultimate eradication of the Palestinian people, the great majority of whom, not all of whom, but the great majority of whom are Muslim. So I don't know what the uproar is over the Hamas charter. I get, or I do know what it is. It's an excuse. It's a pretext. This is a lever that the ADL and the Zionist lobby have found they can use to maneuver, manipulate, cajole some people, some American Jews, Jews around the world, and some Zionists, including many in Congress, to justify the unjustifiable, the inexcusable, the indefensible. So that's why they do it. Bernie forcing sales, pushing two bills that will be, hopefully they'll be voted on today. I'm sure that, I don't know, maybe they'll pass. I don't know. I doubt it. I would be shocked if they'll pass. I'm sure Schumer and, is it McConnell? I don't know. Who is that? Is McConnell the Senate Majority Leader at this point? I think he is. Isn't that amazing that that old guy can barely move, right? He freezes every now and then. I believe Mitch McConnell remains the United States Senate Majority Leader. I believe that's correct. I'm going to Google that in a second. But these are the two bills that Bernie proposed today. Prohibit the U.S., or yesterday, prohibit U.S. taxpayer financed sale of 2/3 of $1 billion of bombs, and also to prohibit and other weapons, and also to stop the sale of tens of thousands of automatic assault rifles. So Good job, Bernie. That's what we were telling the senators to vote to support. I mean, to me, though, and this is what I'll say, like, I love Code Pink. I love what we do. I think that we're trying to do something. Our heart is absolutely in the right place, but it's just not enough. It's not moving the dial. It's not moving the needle. We can talk about Palestine till we're blue in the face. And most Americans, I mean, from the standpoint of politics, most Americans agree with us. I believe there was a poll, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but Haaretz, we were talking about this, concluded with or cited to a poll showing that Mitch McConnell is the majority leader at this point, showing that no, John Thune is, I believe, the Senate majority leader. Let me confirm that. So it is no longer, interestingly, it is not. Who knew? I thought it was, I should have known that. I kind of knew it wasn't. Yeah, Senate Majority Leader John Thune. So, well, it makes sense because McConnell just clearly wasn't up for the job at this point. Israel, Gaza. The position of the Democratic and Republican parties is vastly unpopular. What Code Pink is doing, the videos that are seen often by hundreds of thousands, not millions of people, Medea, Olivia, others, I think really are making a difference, at least when it comes to public opinion. No question about it. It is pushing people, the American people, to understand, to recognize the horror, the evil that the U.S. is responsible for. But it's not changing Congress, right? There was the Marjorie Taylor Greene amendment to withdraw funding of the Iron Dome, and six of 438, 435, I guess a bunch of Dems are dead. 6 of whatever the number is, 432, I believe, actually. 6 of the 432 representatives voted to stop funding Israel. So I love what they're doing. I love what Code Pink is doing. There is more and more pressure. I think ultimately what needs to be done is we need a recognition that neither political party cares about poor, struggling, and working people, and that we must move to a party that will wholeheartedly embrace the kind of economic reforms that the American people are desperate for. People voted for Trump because they thought that he would be better for them, that in the end they would be better off economically. And this is a lesson that Democrats refuse to learn, because to respond to the argument that Trump policies are better for me and my family, to respond to that argument would require Democrats to say, no, these are our policies. We will do this, and we will do this differently than Trump. We will guarantee Medicare for all with no charge for medical services rendered at the point of delivery. We guarantee that. We will bring back good jobs to this country through the tariffs that Trump says he'll implement, but then doesn't. We will greatly reduce the gulf between the rich and everybody else with much higher taxes. That's what would be necessary for the Democrats to do if they were going to really, truly regain power and become a popular party again, instead of an incredibly unpopular, disliked party, less popular than the Republicans. They won't do that because it's not in the individual best interests of the representatives and senators. It's not in their interest to do that. They're better off caping for, defending, protecting Democratic policies, Democratic leadership. That suits them better. That suits AOC better. That suits Bernie better than fighting for you. And that's why we have to go to in a different direction altogether. Democrats can't help us. I want to show you something because, over and over, and we have some of my guests, and I have to say, I'm so disappointed. I was thinking about this, like at least one person used to come on, and I think he's progressive, but he and I really disagreed, and he was such kind of like Arlen, but even further, I think less open to the idea that at least on some issues, Trump wasn't absolutely sane. Trump is really, really bad. No excuses for Trump. But I think there was a recognition that there was little or no recognition. There was no give on issues from that person. And I would love to have them back on because I think that debate is so worth having and trying to see if there's any way to reach that person. And so far I haven't been able to. But they've ghosted me. They won't come on the program at all. They're mad at me. And partly that's my fault. I admit it. Just before we get to why, some of the ways Trump has actually, I think, completely outmaneuvered Democrats and presents himself as actually a more effective and more reasonable leader than Democrats, which is terrible. I'm going to tell you it's terrible. It's terrible for this reason. Well, for a lot of reasons. One reason is because he has fully enabled the genocide just as Harris Biden did. But another reason is on, ecocide. So he's fully behind genocide. Trump is. Trump is also fully behind ecocide. So the EPA to revoke the finding that climate catastrophe, climate crisis, ever warmer temperatures caused by greenhouse gases, they're going to say that's not it doesn't endanger us anymore. Even though it keeps getting hotter and hotter, it was 99 degrees today. It's miserable here. You can't go outside. I did laundry yesterday. I put my clothes outside. I hung a few clothes out, and within an hour they were dry. It's absolutely unbearably hot. Just from a personal comfort standpoint, it's unbearable. I mean, it's not life-threatening for me, but if you don't have air conditioning, what if you can't afford your electric bills? And by the way, all of that heat that that we've created from burning fossil fuels requires us to burn more fossil fuels to keep our homes at a safe temperature, which in my house, it's about 78, 79 degrees in here. You can probably see me sweating. Maybe it's even hotter. And I'm not endangered. But people who live in coastal areas where there's flooding, they're endangered. Massive storms, right? The once every year storms that used to be once in a century storms, the annual storms now that were once in a century storms are killing people. What, hundreds died? Over 100 died anyway in Texas as a result of the mass flooding there. So the idea that Trump is just going to wave some wand and say, oh no, there's no danger, it's utterly absurd. And one would think that voters would say, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. I'm 40 years old, I'm 50 years old, I'm 30 years old. And even in the past 25 years where I have a recollection of what temperatures are like, it's gotten a lot hotter. And my parents tell me that 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was a lot cooler than it is now. And my grandparents tell me that in the 60s, it was even cooler then. So we are all living through this climate holocaust. And Trump is in complete denial. One would think, well, wouldn't that hurt him politically? Why doesn't it hurt him politically? Two reasons. One, the bigger reason, I think, is Democrats aren't offering any alternative vision. They're not offering any solutions. Yes, there were some good stuff in the Inflation Reduction Act, and I haven't really focused on that, and I should. There were some positive programs. There were set-asides. They weren't perfect. The perfect solution is, without question, a fossil fuels tax. That is the perfect solution. But there were some things. But of course, remember, on high-profile issues, the Biden-Harris administration repeatedly failed us. Mountain Valley Pipeline, Willow Creek Project, fracking, liquefied natural gas, LNG. In all these areas, the Biden administration, Harris administration was a disaster. So the Democrats haven't offered a more appealing vision for our climate. That's one reason. And the other reason is, yes, people are very concerned about the climate. Some are in denial. I don't know what percentage of Americans reject the science. Who knows? yes, Americans by and large are concerned about the climate. Yes, we want to stop this inexorably hotter climate and planet that we live on. We want to stop that from happening. But we also want to be able to eat. We also want to feed our family. We want medical treatment if we need it. We want to be able to afford college. And under Trump, as odd as it may seem, as strange as it may seem, for working people, they're not seeing anything get worse. Apparently, I was sort of surprised by this. Inflation is actually a little bit down. It had already come down. I'm not giving Trump, I really give him almost no credit for this, but the fact of the matter is, inflation is not going up the way it was during most, but not all of the Biden years. So at least on that issue, things aren't getting worse and that's a huge issue, right? Affordability for hundreds of millions of Americans, not just 10 million, not 5, not just 50, hundreds of millions of people. The price of eggs really does matter, regardless of what Democrats, how much Dems may mock it. So there's that. At least things haven't gotten worse, observably worse under Trump. And the tariffs are, for all the faults, all the way Trump's doing it, are the right policy. So for working people, Trump isn't making their lives worse. They don't feel like it's worse. If Democrats want to win, you have to appeal to this group, to this cohort. And they don't, and they won't. And that's why we need to go green, or we'll lose. So we need to, because the policies that Trump is following, is pursuing, like the policies the Democrats pursued, are existential threats. They're destroying our world. But people who are desperate to pay the rent, they don't have the luxury of worrying about the climate at this moment. They only have the luxury of worrying about being able to stay in their home if they can. I'm going to play this clip. This is a clip I think really shows Trump in a way that I think objectively you'd have to say is superior to anything we heard from either Harris or Biden. And it's, again, this isn't like I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not. How do you defeat this guy? So here he's talking about the war between Ukraine and Russia. And Trump has really gotten, to his credit, is damn fed up with Russia. He was hoping, he thought, he had a better relationship with Putin. He talked about that. He could leverage that to get Putin to stop the war with Ukraine and the war on Ukraine. And he hasn't been able to do that. And I think he's pissed off about it. He's angry at Putin. So here's his response. Here's what he said at this interview. And I think this is very interesting. And Democrats better come to terms with this.
Whatever it's worth, tax cuts are very good.
Russia moved up the deadline. It's now 10 or 12 days. Is the sanction the same, that you're going to slap 100% tariff on anybody who does business with Russia?
So what? All right, July 28th, he's there with Keir Starmer. And the question is in the UK, the question is, are you going to slap 100% tariffs on Russia's trading partners? Right? By the way, this sort of came as a news to me, and I think he's been floating this idea for a while. And I know there'd been talk about this for maybe 10 days. But I'm like, wow, what a great idea. Russia is an aggressor nation. I think at this point it's fair to conclude that it's Russia. I don't think there's any doubt that Russia, despite Trump's efforts to get Russia to the negotiating table, despite the pressure that he's put on Zelensky too, it seems as though Putin is just unwilling, refuses to talk peace. And Trump's done so many things wrong. This is not a defense of Trump. Trump is awful. But this is better than anything coming out of the Harris-Biden administration when it came to war with Russia. So the question was, would you raise 100% the tariffs on countries, that including India, which is apparently an ally of Russia and the United States, because we've seen Modi hugging, and people say, well, India is an ally of Russia. Well, maybe they are, but they're also an ally of the United States. We've seen Modi hugging Obama and hugging, maybe not Trump, but Biden as well. Here's the question. Here's the answer to that question. Will you raise tariffs on Russia's trading partners?
We're going to do secondary sanctions unless we make a deal. And we might make a deal. I don't know. You don't know. It's we've done so many peace deals. This is the one I started out with. And, I know President Putin called me. He wanted to know if I could help him with Iran. I said, no, I don't need your help with Iran. I need your help with Russia. And
so I want to stop it there, because this never even occurred to me. And I'll play more in a minute. But this idea, it's such a great idea. So what do you call it? Secondary sanctions. We're going to put pressure on Russia by penalizing countries that do business with Russia, not by penalizing them by bombing them. That's awful. I mean, Trump has been very, very willing to use military force, and it's awful that he's done that. It's a terrible, terrible thing that he's done that. Bombing Tehran was awful. It was completely wrong. But in this case, he's not talking about military force. He's not talking about threats. He's saying, hey, Russia, we want you to stop your war in Ukraine. So if you don't, we're going to apply what he called their secondary penalties, secondary sanctions against Russia. In other words, your partners, and they're not going to like it. And they may say, because we're a bigger economy than you by a huge margin, they're not going to want to lose business with us. They're going to put pressure on you to stop. And they're not going to want to lose your business either, but they're going to say to you, hey, come on, Vladimir, stop it. Just stop with all the killing in Ukraine. It's a really great idea.
One deal that continues to linger. And, we're losing 5,000. They're losing. I'm not losing. You're not losing. But 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian kids a week are dying. And that's not mentioning the people that are dying also in towns where, he's lobbing missiles into certain towns like Kiev. And he's got to make a deal. It's too many people are dying. It's a really bloody war. And the 5 is now, they're really telling me that number is obsolete. It's like 7.
That's terrible.
So you have 7.
So let me stop it there. So that's, I mean, that is a better message on an important foreign policy issue from Trump than I ever heard from Harris Biden, really on any foreign policy issue. Certainly when you'd say, well, Trump is awful, and he is, on Ukraine, on Israel, Gaza. And that's inexcusable, and it's a genocide, and there's no way around that. And not that I would even try to get a way around it, but he must be held, I believe, if there's any justice in the world, Trump will be held responsible for that. But when it comes to Ukraine, which is also an important issue, right? To me, it's not as important as Ukraine, but it's an important issue. What did you say? 5,000 people a month, maybe it's more, are being killed on both sides. This is really bad. It's a really bad war. It's really bloody. It's a stalemate. This has to end. I'm not going to send in U.S. troops. I don't want to send in more weapons. But I want it to end. I don't remember hearing Joe Biden talk with that degree of sense or even concern for others. And I make this point because, again, Democrats, if your entire message is how awful Trump is, you're going to lose. You can't win with that message because you're no better on a lot of issues. You're worse on this issue. No one's going to buy your crap. And unless you can get around the fact that your policies, when it comes to even bread and butter, pocketbook, affordability issues, aren't good either, aren't making life better either, you're going to keep losing. This is, the partisanship has to end, the hyper partisanship, the idea that everything Trump touches turns to crap, and we Democrats are just morally superior. is just so clearly false. And that argument, I know many people believe it, but that argument, when you make it, you lose. You will lose the war. You will lose everything. All right, 240-242-5646. 2 thumbs up from both parties are traitors. Thank you so much. Both parties are traitors. Agree with your name. 100%. I saw this host. I don't know how she this YouTuber. I don't know how she came up on my feed, and now I can't even remember her name. She's from Oregon. Portland, Oregon. I thought it was Portland, Maine, but it's not. It's something permaculture, I think. Primrose, or it's not even Primrose, something permaculture. So she does a lot on gardening. But I watched this video, and she's got a ton, man. She's got a lot of subscribers. So I want to play it because I think her message is just so wrong for our times. And yet, it's where so many people on the Democrats, progressives are in the exact same place. So let me play some of this for you.
At all, don't have any plan. The same folks who back in the election, when I was like, okay, I'm voting for Kamala, and they're like, genocide, you're a genocider, Angela, if you're going to vote for Kamala Harris. And I was like, please tell me how Donald Trump getting reelected, even though Palestinians begged us not to let him get back into the White House. Explain to me how Donald Trump in the White House is going to stop the genocide.
All right, so let me stop it there. So she's defending her vote for Harris. She's rejecting anyone who said, hey, wait a second. She says her name's Angela, something permaculture again. I wish I remember the name. I'll look that up in a moment. But she's rejecting the argument from people who said, wait a second, Harris is all in for the genocide. People like me, right, who said that's what she's, and she's saying, oh, no, tell me how voting for somebody that Palestinians are all insisting we should never vote for and begging us not to vote for. How can that be good? And what she said is false. The Palestinian vote was not overwhelming whatsoever for Trump. I mean, overwhelming against Trump. Palestinians turned against the Democrats, turned against Harris. They begged Harris to give them something, to throw some kind of a bone, and she wouldn't do it. So that lady there, Angela, she's not understanding the reality of the situation, which was that voters, Palestinians, viewed both candidates as awful, as bad, as wrong for our country. And I think that's a major mistake that she makes, and an important one, because she's assuming, for her whole argument, she has to assume that there's a vast gulf morally between Trump and the Democrats. And she invokes Palestinian voters for that argument. But the fact is, Palestinian voters don't share that. By the way, Park Rose, why do I have so much trouble with this? Park Rose permaculture is right there on that video. So I had a lot of trouble finding it. But so this lady is, her feed is Park Rose permaculture, and she's clearly a loyal Dem, and she loves AOC apparently, and she's really mad. She got really mad at the attack on AOC's office in response to AOC's vote for Israel, for the Iron Dome. So now she's explaining exactly why she's mad at the people who criticize AOC, mad at the people who, I guess, went after AOC with vandalism, and anyone who even says, no, you can't vote for the Democrats. The Democrats are bad people because Trump trumps all. Trump is so evil that you cannot, even consider Trump. And, I just played that clip where on a really important issue, permanent war, endless war with Russia, Trump actually, and he's done this before, right? This isn't the first time, actually evinces some empathy, some sympathy for the victims of war. Not Palestinians, of course, but at least in that case, Ukrainians. And that's not a nothing issue, by the way, not a nothing issue.
Instead of just accelerate it. And they didn't have an answer. They never had an answer. Those same folks right now. So
her question was, well, how would voting for Trump or letting Trump become president help Palestine? Well, I don't think any of us thought that. I think what we thought was we're not going to vote for genocide. We're going to go in a different direction. And we hope that you will too. We hope that you will help us build a movement for something different than either of the two genocidal parties. That's our point. Now you're saying you're putting the burden on those who say, well, I can't vote for Kamala because she said I'm not going to do anything differently. Because she said I'm not going to withhold weapons from Israel, no matter what they do. I won't do that. You're saying we were wrong to hold out against Harris and refuse to vote for her for that reason, because according to you, there's no plan to stop the genocide. That won't stop the genocide. But I would then turn around and you would say, well, you're the one who's making an affirmative decision to vote for this woman. You're saying we have to vote for her. How is that going to end the genocide? If that's the goal, which I agree it should be, how would voting for Harris in any way accomplish that goal? And she, like other Harris supporters, has no answer. I heard Jamal Bowman's answer was, well, I think in private she expressed some reservations about full-blown support for Israel, and we hope we could have persuaded her. Okay, well, that's not an answer. That's just hope. That's just hopium. That's not reality.
Don't have any strategic plan for how we are going to stop the war in Gaza. They have no pathway. It's just stop it now without development of any kind of step-by-step strategy to bring us to a point where we can help these folks.
All right, well, so the point there is there was a strategy, right? The strategy was, let's have sanctions. Let's stop arming them. Let's stop supporting them. There was a lot of strategy. And it was completely rejected by Kamala Harris. So I don't get her point. She's saying we have to help the people dying. Agreed. But that voting for Harris wouldn't have done that. So your whole argument, I think, fails completely. What she's left with, and we'll play a little more, what she's left with, and I'll play a little more later, but really interesting here.
Are starving, being starved. They're not just like starving from, some natural disaster. They are intentionally being starved. And that's why I was so angry, because not only were people pretending that they were completely incapable of understanding why partnering or supporting anything Marjorie Taylor Greene does might be.
So now she's turning it. She's saying that it was wrong to partner with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's saying they have no strategy. But Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill, which would say no more cutting off aid to Israel for the Iron Dome, that actually would accomplish an awful lot. It was a strategy. It was a good plan. It was a good idea. But you're saying because it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's a bad idea. You're not saying it isn't a strategy. You're changing your argument altogether. But this is, honestly, this is Trump derangement syndrome. Trump is awful. I get it why people hate him. I get it why you don't want him to be president. I don't want to be president either. The treatment of immigrants, the denial of the climate ecocide. The worst of all, supporting Israel. These are terrible, terrible things. But because Trump is awful doesn't equate to giving AOC a pass. It doesn't equate to saying, well, if you're saying I shouldn't have supported Hillary and Kamala, so I guess you wanted Trump to be president. No. Trump's president because Hillary and Kamala have no plan for the working class except to make their lives even more difficult, except for more H-1B visas to take more jobs in Silicon Valley away from them, except for more, quote, free, unquote, trade deals that keep wages low, except for an incoherent immigration plan that also helps keep wages low. Those are the Democratic responses, except for Obamacare, which has led to, a tighter grip on our economy by the elites, since they can hold people hostage who have their health care plans. So this is just ridiculous. And the presentation by this host, I think this is what we see over and over and over again, Park Rose permaculture, is the moral indignation, the confidence, the certitude that she's right, that Trump is so evil, that Marjorie Taylor Greene, how could you say it's the right thing to partner with her? It's insane. She's so deranged.
Idea. Also, because they pretend that they cannot understand nuance and incremental progress. They pretend that they cannot understand the realities of the situation we are currently in.
So again, we understand the nuance. That's why you want to hold the defensive shield from Israel, so that they will be hit. So that if they continue their genocide, if they don't make peace with their neighbors, if they continue to be the meanest, nastiest, most murderous bully in the area on the block, that they will have to pay a price for that. So all of that is part of the Taylor Greene Amendment. It's all in there, and you're just refusing to understand that and projecting your inability to acknowledge, your refusal to acknowledge that someone that's been demonized repeatedly, Marjorie Taylor Greene, could have had the right idea.
Cannot help folks in Palestine until we topple authoritarianism. We have to get to a place where we are actually capable of helping them. And that requires us to first...
Well, again, to get to a place where we could help them is you unite with whoever you can find in Congress who will vote against Israel. And that's exactly what AOC did not do. So now Park Rose permaculture is going on to make a point which I actually agree with, which is we need a better government. We need a better government in this country. Trump in office, the Republicans in charge, that's not a recipe for a better, stabler world. Not at all. So we agree on that.
A stable government where the fascists who are perfectly happy to carry out endless genocides are no longer in power.
So does she mean by that Trump, or does she mean only Trump, or does she also include Harris, Biden, Blinken? Because they're responsible too. The Israeli genocide began before Trump came back into power. The Israeli ethnic cleansing, the Israeli land theft, persecution, this has been going on for, 77 years now. So long before any of the people currently in power were in power. But, you can't just lay it all at Trump's feet whatsoever. But she does. Because, again, that's the mindset. We have to stop Trump no matter what. But if you stop Trump, but you replace him with your garden variety, pardon the puns, since your Park Rose permaculture, your garden variety Democrat, your garden variety AIPAC, stooge, pro-Israel lobby approved corporate Dem, we're not going to get to a better place. And working people are going to see their lives, quality of life continue to drop. They're going to continue to be bitter, angrier, more resentful of Democrats.
Very dysregulated kind of reaction from folks on the left toward AOC as being not only not useful in getting us closer to achieving the goal of ending the genocide, I actually see it as being detrimental toward moving us closer to that goal. It is hindering us getting closer to that goal for two reasons. One, I know people don't like to hear it, but we have to build a broad-based coalition of folks who don't think like us, don't necessarily vote like us, but they also want to partner together for one purpose, which is stopping fascism.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. So that is where Park Rose permaculture and so many on the left, or I should say so many progressives and I completely part ways. Yes, I mean, ultimately, of course, I want to stop fascism. I want to end fascism. But fascism doesn't begin and end with Donald Trump. And the message to end or to partner with people like, I assume she means Bill Kristol. I assume she means other elites. I mean, she has, 500,000, I believe, subscribers, some very big number, 343K subscribers. She's probably making in the neighborhood, I understand, it's very, very round numbers, but basically for every 100,000 subscribers you have, you can maybe guesstimate about $10,000 in income. 100,000, a million subscribers, you have a $100,000 income. So if she has 343K subscribers, she's getting about 34,000 in the roundest of numbers, possibly from her stream. So that's real money. That's real. And it's not saying it's necessarily enough to live. You live in Portland, it's an expensive city, what have you. But that's real money. And presumably, she has the luxury, the resources to do this. I don't know. Maybe she's not at all middle class. Maybe she's just barely hanging on to the middle class. And I'm assuming her a certain level of affluence that isn't there. I don't know. But to say that my main concern, my primary concern is to end fascism reflects a certain level of privilege. Because people who are hungry don't give a crap about fascism. People who are hungry don't give a crap about isms. They don't care about racism. They don't care about anything except putting food in their belly. People who have children who need medicine, who need medications, they care about getting medicine into their children. That's what they care about. And when you say you'll partner with people you disagree with, what you're telling me is you're going to partner with people who aren't for Medicare for all, who aren't for fighting the climate crisis. You're going to partner with elites, with the billionaire class, with people who are against raising taxes on you and on them. And if that's your position, if you're going to partner with people who are all for or certainly comfortable with the two-tiered system we have now, where there are a few haves and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of have-nots, if you're going to partner with those people, you're never going to get an end to the genocide. You just aren't. The way we end genocide, all of this, the isms, fascism, is where you provide an environment where everyone has enough and no one has too much. And then people start worrying about their neighbors. Then people start worrying about a fair and equitable world. Until then, it ain't happening. This has been such a heavy lift for me to get this message across. And I don't know why, because history is so clear. History could not speak more clearly that the more inequality there is in a society, the more willing people are to follow fascists, to follow authoritarians. The more willing they are to be accepting of unjust treatment of others. It's only when you have a world where there's fair distribution of wealth, where poverty is addressed forcibly, that you get some kind of real morality through and through. And this message is so hard to get through to people. And one of the arguments I've heard, and I just want to show this real quick about Marjorie Taylor Greene, because if you want to end fascism, right? Well, I don't know what could be more fascistic than a genocide. And here's Taylor Greene, the woman you just said that no one should partner with her. That doing so, that by refusing to vote with her, AOC was doing the right thing, right? People don't get that it's a bad idea. Well, she calls it a genocide. Bernie doesn't even call it a genocide. I did an AI search on that. As far as we know, Bernie's never said it's a genocide. AOC had to be pressured aggressively, hard, pushed by her New York City constituents to grudgingly agree it's a genocide. And she really talks about that. And she lied about it. She lied to you when she said that Harris was working tirelessly for a ceasefire. She wasn't. That was a lie. Taylor Greene is a Republican. She's in a party that has pretty much embraced Israel and Zionism, even perhaps to a greater degree even than the Democrats have. And yet here she is, partnering up. Talk about partnering, right? We got to partner together, right? Park growth permaculture, we got to partner together against fascism. Well, here's Marjorie Taylor Greene partnering with her Democratic Georgia Congress member, Hank Johnson, to agree, yeah, this is a genocide. No question about it. Just real quick, from both parties are traitors. We have no left in government. You're right. We don't. That's why we got to build it. That's why we got to become green. We got to turn green. Just real quick, one more. This is why, the Park Rose permaculture, why I play that for you is because the opinions, the views that she expressed, these are rife on the Democratic side. How dare you criticize AOC? She's the best we've got. You're making it harder for the left, not easier. Bernie, you prefer Trump? No, those aren't your options. Those aren't the only choices. Marjorie Taylor Greene, not only did she label Gaza crisis a genocide, which it of course is, she's called out her fellow Republican. She totally trashed Randy Fine, who's this crazed Florida Zionist. And that is so what we want. Democrats seem to completely ignore the fact, we won't acknowledge that we don't want you to be hyper partisan. We want you to take on your leaders. We want you to take on other members of your party when they're doing bad things. So, again, the slamming. Look, Marjorie Taylor Greene is bad on a lot of issues, but you can work with her. We can clearly, progressives, if you really care, if the issues you say you care about, you can work with her. Clearly, she's not some sort of doctrinaire, hyper-partisan Republican or even MAGA. So until we get that, again, we can't have good things. As long as you put loyalty, and this is why I don't believe the Democratic Party can ever be rehabilitated, or we can ever get why Bernie and AOC, why Bernie's not an ally in the end, or Bernie's not doing enough in the end. Because only when you're willing to call out your own party, your base, only when you're willing to take them on, can we make a change? Can we make a difference? Here, Marjorie Taylor Greene rips Randy Fine's starve away statement. I mean, she calls it disgraceful. She said it was awful what that he was representing Florida. I mean, I don't know what more people would want from her. You always say, well, what do you want from AOC? Well, what I want from AOC, besides I want my slide deck to look right, what I want from AOC is I do want her to call out Democratic leadership. I do want her to be willing, not just to break with her party on one issue or two issues. I want her to break with her party. I want Bernie to break with his party. That's what I want. Because the party itself, because they're not the party. They're not the leaders of the party. They aren't steering the ship. And I don't see any reason to believe they ever will. And even if they were, I wouldn't trust them to. Because they don't seem to have any convictions that they'll fight for. But if you want to know who's steering the Democratic ship, there it is. Those are your leaders. Tumble new poll, 33% approval rating. They're still not, you still can't call these people out. Still think, what's his name? Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego are fantastic. That's AOC. This is a party whose brand is so bad that they're not even credible when it comes to criticizing Trump and the Republicans. Until they reconnect with real voters, this is what I said, until they reconnect with real voters and working people on who they are for and what their economic messages, they'll have problems. And they can never reconnect. Because to reconnect with working class people would mean rejecting the billionaires who control them, who hold their strings. Don't believe me? Let's listen to some. Let's listen to, I got a bunch of clips here. I don't know if it's already been an hour. Try to keep the show to an hour, but let me just play a little bit. Here's, this is apparently the front runner for the 2028 presidential nominee. This is him. Pete Buttigieg. I don't know how to pronounce it. I always was Buttigieg, but I heard someone say Buttigieg. So I'm not sure. Here's Pete. Oh, let's see if this works.
And Democrats getting stuck defending the status quo. One of your fellow Democrats, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, has talked a lot about this recently. And I can summarize his argument by saying Democrats need to be more populist. We need to acknowledge that people are profoundly dissatisfied with the status quo. We also, as Democrats, he would say, need to be tearing things down, need to be talking about the very few people who seem to be benefiting in this situation. He also wants Democrats to be louder, a little more disruptive in government. What do you make of his approach?
I think it's certainly true that we can't be wedded to the old.
All right, so that's sort of the theme of that. And I cut it out right there because it was kind of the theme of that interview, is that Democrats need to be more populist. And he says, yeah, the old approaches aren't working. And then what does he focus on? Communication, aiming higher. And I'll play this part here because this is what he talks about, the low-hanging fruit. He doesn't use that expression, but some areas where Democrats can be popular, can win. So let's hear what Buttigieg has to say.
All of us should just agree on that. Then there's the level of kind of contested policies, what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, we could start right now focusing on the things where most people are with us and at least try to deliver those first before we get into things where we might have a little more persuasion.
All right, so let me stop it. So that seems like a really smart idea, right? Choose some popular policies that the Republicans are against and promote them and say, if we're empowered, this is what we'll do. This is what I've been saying. That's your vision thing. That's your vision. We'll make your life better. This is how. So let's hear how Buttigieg goes about that solution.
Most people already get that we should have paid family leave in this country. Most people already get that your healthcare should be taken care of one way or the other in this country.
All right, so that's what your healthcare should be taken care of one way or another. That's the popular issue that he says Democrats are with the American people. Most people get that your healthcare should be taken care of one way or the other. Well, I think Trump would agree with that too. He'd say, yeah, your healthcare should be taken care of one way or the other, either through your employer or maybe by yourself. Yeah, it should be taken care of one way or the other. Where the Democratic Party is, where the American people is, no, your healthcare should be taken care of by the government. We should have government-provided healthcare. He doesn't say that. There's no vision there. He says, oh, we all believe in paid family leave. I guess, but I don't think a lot of small businesses really do support paid family leave. In a way, paid family leave, I think, is a bit unfair. You are putting a huge burden on the employer to provide that family leave. Now, what I would say is it shouldn't be paid family leave that you're going to give, the employer has to give you money. There should be government support for new parents who need it. There should be some kind of economic provisions made for new parents that the taxpayer, the billionaires, pay for out of their pocket through taxes. I wouldn't say to a small business owner, restaurant owner, well, you have a server and they just had a baby and now they want to take off 3 months. You got to pay them for 3 months and you got to hire somebody else. That doesn't sound like a particularly equitable solution. A small restaurant competing with, say, an Applebee's or some big corporation, they can more easily afford, obviously, to pay for the family leave. So what Buttigieg is saying, yeah, let's put it on the employer. But I don't know that there's universal support for that. What there is for Medicare for all, but he doesn't say it. And I'll tell you another policy where there's the overwhelming support of the American people, ending the Gaza Holocaust. He doesn't mention this whole interview. There's not one mention of Israel or Gaza. So again, complete failure, right? You are trying to rally people to vote for you, I presume. You're saying this is what Democrats need to do to counter Trump. And the best you can come up with is, well, we should start with policies where the American people are with us. Like, well, on healthcare, everyone, we all believe it should be taken care of one way or the other. Come on. Nobody's falling for that crap. It's embarrassing is what it is. And again, you contrast that with Trump, who at least when he was talking about Ukraine, he said, hey, people are dying, 5,000 people a day. Maybe it's more in Ukraine. Both are 5,000 people a month are dying, both armies. People, civilians are getting shot, killed, bombed. We got to stop it. Here's my plan. I'm going to impose secondary sanctions. Countries that do business with Russia, they're going to have to pay higher tariffs. It's going to cost them money if they do business with Russia. This will put pressure on Russia. We can all understand it. It makes perfect sense. I understand it. Maybe it won't work. We hope it will. What is Buttigieg's solution? Well, healthcare should be taken care of one way or the other. We all agree on that. No one has any idea what the hell that even means. This party, and he can't support it. Now, let me play a little bit more. I have a couple clips. This was interesting. Senator Slotkin from Michigan went on Breaking Points with Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty. And it was kind of weird. Like, why was she there? In fact, Crystal asked her that question. Maybe she didn't know what she was getting into. Maybe she thought she could get over them. I can't believe she didn't know. She must know. This is a very popular YouTube program. They've got hundreds and hundreds of videos up, maybe thousands at this point. She could easily review them. I don't know. Maybe she just didn't. Maybe some staffer is a fan and kind of, she might have been sandbagged a little bit. I just don't know. But I want to just play this clip because I think this answers why we can never expect Democrats to lead us to a better place.
If, Senator Slotkin, if you were asked to support defensive weapons for Iran, defensive weapons for Russia, you wouldn't back that. No.
So what the question is obviously about the Iron Dome. And what Slotkin has said that she's open to like maybe stopping shipments of offensive weapons to Israel, but not defensive. And so Crystal is saying, well, wait a second. You're saying that there's a distinction, but you wouldn't vote for defensive weapons to go to Iran or Russia now, would you? So, presuming if that's the case, why would you give them to Israel? So let's listen to more.
I mean, but
they're defensive. They're just protecting civilians, right?
Right.
So how is it different?
But because Israel's being shot at. I mean,
well, so is Russia.
So is Iran.
Yeah.
So is Russia.
Ukraine's shooting at Russia right now.
I'm sorry. This is the difference.
So she can't even understand that. They're like, well, wait, you want to protect Israel? You want to give Israel interceptor missiles to protect them from Houthi missiles and Iranian missiles, and if Hamas has any missiles or any other country in the region is going to send missiles, you're saying Israel should be protected. But you would never approve the gift of defensive weapons and interceptor missiles to countries like Iran or Russia. And they're being shot at. What's the difference? So here's what she has to say.
Allies, partners, and adversaries.
Why is it an ally then?
So she's saying, well, the difference is Israel's our ally. Israel's our ally. That's the difference because they're an ally. They're one of us. I want to play a little more because this goes to the heart of the reason we can never expect an AOC, a Bernie, even an Ilhan Omar or a Tlaib to fight for the working people in this country to bring about the kind of change we need. They will only continue to spiral us down that rabbit hole, that road to hell that we're already far down.
For Iran, defensive weapons for Russia, you wouldn't back that.
No, but Iran, but
they're defensive. They're just protecting civilians, right?
Right.
So how is it different?
But because Israel's being shot at.
Well, so is Russia.
So is Iran.
Yeah.
So is Russia.
Ukraine's shooting at Russia right now.
I'm sorry. This is the difference between allies, partners, and adversaries.
Why is it an ally then? What are they doing right now which makes it an ally?
I think allied relationships, just like Lithuania right now, like an allied relationship or a partner relationship.
Just like Lithuania. She doesn't even understand what they're getting at. They're saying, wait, Israel is a genocidal outlaw state. They're viewed throughout the world, and justly so, as reprehensible, as murderous, as horrific. And that doesn't even register with Slotkin. They're our ally. We have relationships with them. How could you even suggest? How could you even put them on a par with a country like Russia or Iran? Those countries aren't our allies. So what Slotkin is saying there basically, and she says earlier, she's a capitalist and she's rich. Her family, her great-grandfather or something made a lot of money. And so now she's living the American dream. And I guess because of that, other people who come from poor families don't get to. I think that's her argument. But the point is, the people that we've built relationships with, the people I build relationships with in the Senate, within my party, the leaders in my party, those are my allies. I'm not going to break with them. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what Israel does. They're my ally. They can do whatever the hell they want. So that's the same exact, that mindset that AOC and Bernie have. Well, Trump's my enemy. Why'd you support Harris and Hillary? You shouldn't have supported them. You should have. See, this is why Bernie's not doing enough. It's not that, yes, he introduced a good bill. We hope it passes. It's the right thing to do. But in the end, it's so wholly insufficient. You have to break with this organized crime party that you're part of. And that's not even something he could even contemplate. When asked, why did you support Hillary? Why did you support Kamala? Would Trump be better? That's no. See that? And in the end, yeah. And that's the problem. And that's why they can't be trusted. And that's why you have to vote Green. You have to become a Green. You have to support the Greens. Now, I mean, obviously, there are going to be discrete elections where that won't be the case. Maybe a Green candidate isn't running. Maybe it's not a good Green candidate. Maybe there really is a pretty good Democrat, like an Omar or a Tlaib running. I get that. But we have to switch allegiance. We have to be prepared right now to build the Green Party to be the formidable adversary to both parties that we need for our freedom, for our democracy.
It's a long-standing relationship of information sharing and diplomacy. And that is, to me, it's not a like every day we decide Lithuania is our ally or not. We're allied or not. And sometimes we have big breaks with allies.
So for her, I don't care if my ally is killing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of innocent people. They're my ally. And I think the question to follow up with her, and I don't know if they did, and I'm not going to play any more of this, but the question I would follow up with then is, well, if Germany had been our ally, would you keep shipping them weapons because they're our ally? We have information sharing. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible failure of morality where you elevate that idea of allyship, of friendship somehow above anything, above morality, above justice, above fairness. It doesn't matter. And finally, just to end this, and I want to thank you for being part of Halitics, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, to her credit, didn't do that. She called out fellow Republican Randy Fine. She said, this is wrong. You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed of yourself for supporting Israel. All right, tomorrow, Thursday, I'll be back for another Halitics. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And again, thank you for being part of Halitics.